I wanted something that was largely traditionally physical retail so I could bring it online with a more direct-to-consumer model. My last company, we went heavy physical retail at launch, which was a huge mistake.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ecom Growth Show.
Let's go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ecom Growth Show. Today we're super excited. We have with us Colin McIntosh of Sheets and Giggles. And yeah, we're just going to dive in and see what we can learn from him. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully you can learn some sheet from me. So, cold.
No pun intended, right?
yeah.
Perfect. And you're based out of Denver, right?
Yep, I'm looking right out at the Rockies right now, actually.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, dude, I love Denver.
Where are you guys based?
We're up here in Homer, Alaska. I spent a year in Denver, but we're in a different mountainous area now, but live up here with our wives and kids, and this is where we put down roots.
Jeez, I've been in Alaska once in my life. It's absolutely stunning, but that's a little far.
That's cool.
I'm glad you guys.
Where'd you go in Alaska?
I've been to Juneau. I've been to Anchorage. I went salmon fishing in, I want to say, Ketchikan.
Oh, that's cool.
I had a fun little trip up there with my family. I was 17 or 18 at the time, so it's been a little while.
Yeah.
But the memories don't really fade. Alaska's completely gorgeous.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm from South Florida, so it's a little far from home.
Yeah.
That is a little bit far.
Like opposite corners there. That's cool, man. Well, we'll just jump right in here. Tell us a little bit about your personal life and your work and kind of why you do what you do.
My personal life? I mean, it's all right. It's going fine. Personally, I'm Colin, CEO of Sheets and Giggles. I just turned 30 last year, so I'm on the other side of wise, is the way I call it.
Yeah.
I live in Denver, Colorado. I'm from South Florida originally. I have worked at a few different places in my career. I've been fired 3 different times. I founded Sheets and Giggles in 2017. It's now the longest I've ever worked anywhere is for myself. I have a pretty fun life out here in Denver. I've got a good group of friends, and I just closed my first house, which I'm really excited about. And that's why, for your viewers who are watching this video, I am in a Colorado t-shirt, just surrounded by empty nothingness, because I'm currently moving all my things into my new home. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome, dude. Congratulations.
And were you fired 3 times because you've been an entrepreneur your whole life? You just didn't know it. Now that you started your own business, you're like, this feels right.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm a terrible soldier. I don't take marching orders well. The first question from an entrepreneur is usually why, and the first answer is usually no. And so that's not good for being an employee of other people. You need people, and I see this now in my own business. You need people who are both creative, but also who are very good at not taking orders, but just being able to separate maybe what they would prefer to do with what the person that is running the company wants them to do. And I think that the trick with entrepreneurs is that they always have a different idea of how to run the company that they're at. That's usually, I actually asked every entrepreneur that I know in Techstars when I was going through Techstars, why'd you start your own company? Not from a mission perspective or a business perspective, but why a company? Why not a charitable organization or a mastermind or just go out and patent a product and try to license it to a larger company or something along those lines? And every single one of them said they wanted to be a CEO for some variation of, I was tired to taking orders from somebody else. I was tired of listening to rules from somebody else. And for me, that was similar. I think that I got laid off for the 3rd time from a startup that I had poured about 3 years of my life into.
Wow.
And we all got laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday in September 2017. And that was really emotional. And that was kind of a triggering point. And I think that a lot of people need that emotional trigger to do something as crazy as start their own company. And so I basically 3 weeks, I put my head to the pen to paper, and 3 weeks later I founded Sheets and Giggles because I believed in the business model, and I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I decided that I was never going to work for somebody else's company again. So,
dude, that's pretty crazy. And then why Sheets? What made you go from getting fired, having that moment of realization of like, kind of jolted you out of your comfort zone, right? Of what was normal to you. And then you're like, all right, I'm going to start Sheets and Giggles. How did that process take place?
So bed sheets, this is our knapsack, and that is spelled without a K. So bed sheets are a massive, highly fragmented commodities market with no brand differentiation or loyalty. The top five players own about 27% of the space. It's highly traditionally physical retail. It hasn't been brought online totally with direct-to-consumer models. And there were no good sustainable options in a marketplace that was dominated by mostly cotton and polyester. And so I looked at the industry. And this is a true story. I wrote out my first business model, my best business model. I said, what am I best in the world at? And I thought that I was best in the world at writing copy that convinced people to make an order, copywriting basically. And so I kind of translated that into, I feel like I'm really good at branding and consumer branding. And so I ended up saying, okay, I want a consumer brand. I'm going to learn from my last company that I just went through this really difficult emotional tumult with. And I want to have a massive commodities market that I don't have to build myself, because we were trying to create something out of nothing at the last company. I wanted something that was highly fragmented, so I don't have to chip away at a market leader, which we had to do at that last company. I wanted something that was largely traditionally physical retail, so I could bring it online with a more direct-to-consumer model. My last company, we went heavy physical retail at launch, which was a huge mistake. And I wanted something with zero brand differentiation or loyalty, so that way I wouldn't have any trouble convincing people from switching from one brand to mine, and frankly, so I could zig where everybody else was zagging. And part of my specification is I wanted a really boring industry, so I could be myself and be kind of funny and do something a little different and hopefully have more of a lightning rod brand. And I owned sheetsgiggles.com because I thought it'd be a funny name for a bed sheets company. I bought that probably 3 or 4 months prior on a whim. And I thought that I looked at all the domains that I owned. I was actually very inspired by my friends and mentors at alarm.com, who told me that part of the reason they started the company was because they had the perfect brand name for a home security company. And I said, really? You built a multi-billion-dollar company partially because the name was just that good? And they were like, yeah, the name was just that good.
Dang.
And I looked at all my domains. I owned sheetsgiggles.com. I thought this bedding fit my criteria. It fit it perfectly. And I found out that I was able to differentiate meaningfully on both the brand as well as the product. And we only do eucalyptus lyocell sheets and fabric instead of cotton or polyester. Which uses way less water, way less energy, and also importantly, zero insecticides, zero pesticides, whereas cotton uses the harmful neonicotinoids that are killing bird and bee populations. And also in regards to polyester, it doesn't use any petrochemicals in its production, whereas polyester is of course the leading cause of microplastics in our waterways. And a single polyester sheet set can shed up to 100 million microplastic fibers per year if you wash it once per month. And so when you add up the amount of sheet sets that we've sold, we've saved trillions of microplastic fibers from entering our waterways in comparison to if those people had owned polyester bed sheets. So that's kind of the mission and doing behind it. But really, truthfully, why bed sheets? It's a wonderful market for me to be myself and go crazy in and build an authentic brand that stands out from the rest.
That's crazy. And it sounds like you did a lot of research, put a great plan together, and it's working out really well. What's some of the biggest mistakes you see other people make when they're first going to start an e-commerce store or their own brand?
I was just on the phone with somebody today that I was giving some mentorship to, and I've gotten really mentorship in my life, so I try to pay it forward with other people. And he told me, he's like, hey, I'm about to launch. I just bought, my first $10,000 worth of inventory, and it's coming in on April 30th. And now I'm trying to figure out how to go out there and sell it. And I'm like, dude, did it totally backwards. Like I did and this happens all the time, is like I did an Indiegogo campaign, a crowdfunding campaign off a $15,000 budget, and I did that, and we raised $284,000.
Dang.
And that was, and we convinced thousands of people back in May 2018 to wait 5 months for bed sheets, which is still my proudest marketing achievement of all time.
Yeah.
And I have a very special relationship with those couple thousand people who were our initial backers. I am eternally grateful for them, and they brought the company to life. But I always think about how many pre-sales could you get for your idea if you put that money instead of inventory into marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to move quickly on inventory because it's a very tangible thing that you're buying. Mm-hmm. But with marketing and with sales, you're actually buying the customer, which is more important than actually producing the product at that point, because you're getting somebody to buy into what you're building. And I think that's more valuable than owning some portion of inventory. So that's probably the most common mistake. And then probably not understanding your variable costs, not understanding your unit economics, not accounting for things like discounting and returns, not forecasting out what your break even is if marketing is, 20, 30, 40, 50% of every sale, what that looks like over time from an LTV perspective. If you're trying to, and I think also this kind of goes into goal alignment and goal misalignment. I think a lot of people need to be a little bit more steadfast in what they're trying to achieve when they start an e-commerce business. Mm-hmm. I think some folks have a very clear vision. For me, I wanted to make $3,000 a month so I could pay my bills, eat ramen, and tell everybody. And that was it. That was my goal. And never have my healthcare pulled out from under me suddenly ever again.
Yeah.
And that was my goal. And so, other people want to raise money. Other people want to build a big business. Other people want to have a little side income. And so all those goals will also inform your go-to-market strategy and how you set up the company from day one. So goal alignment as well.
That's super awesome. You spoke a lot about like growing the idea and even validating, I guess, the customer acquisition or the offer or whatever you want to call it, by doing the Indiegogo, the crowdfunding, all the marketing stuff, and even the strategic way you brought this into the market and how you kind of saw an opportunity there. That's all stuff that I really get and understand, and you like nailed it on the head. It's super cool to hear how that worked out for you. What I'm curious about is this is an area where I don't have as much knowledge, is when you had this idea for the product and specifically on how you're making a difference in the environment. How did you then figure out how to either source that product, manufacture that product, or what was the logistical experience for you in launching, this sheet brand?
So in terms of like actually building the product and the logistics behind it, I mean, it was definitely, that was a thing that I've always had the most trouble with in terms of like my own imposter syndrome, because I don't have a background in textiles or in bedding. And so basically I had to hire people who had, decades long experience in textiles. I had to ask them to be my mentors at first, and then, help me navigate everything from reaching out to manufacturers to doing materials research and design to, setting up these meetings and actually having these initial conversations about like what the product should look like and why, and, the things I should be considering and why I should consider one material but not the other. In terms of talking about everything from thread count to tensile strength to stitches per inch to all these things that, minimum order quantities and sizing and color breakdown. There are a million different things to consider in the beginning. And so the way I approached it was, I think, a little like very methodical in the sense that I said, okay, what is the minimum order quantity for somebody to work with me on bedding? And in the bedding category, it's about $250,000 to $500,000 worth of minimum order quantity. No one will really work with you if you can't guarantee that much. And then I said, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to raise that much money for my Indiegogo. I'm targeting $100,000. So can I get these shipments broken up into 3 or 4 shipments? So I'm paying for my minimum order quantity at $90,000, $100,000 at a time. And then that way I can make sure that I can separate my shipments and I'm not bringing in too much inventory at once. Yes, you can do that. Okay, great. And then it was, well, how do I get these face-to-face meetings with these manufacturing partners and have them take me seriously? Well, there's something in New York every year called Market Week, which is Home Textiles Market Week. So flew out to New York, set up some meetings, and about a dozen manufacturers across the world, and showed them my designs and what I wanted, and talked about my specifications, did some initial negotiation, product sampling. And within about a month after that, I had signed my purchase order with my manufacturer that I felt really, really good about from a sustainability and ethics perspective. And they, we ended up negotiating 10% deposit on the first PO. So I ended up wiring about $25,000 or $30,000 to my manufacturing partners to get going. But in terms of when I did that, I actually did not do that until we had specifically captured over 10,000 emails ahead of the Indiegogo launch. And I can talk about the crowdfunding map there a little bit, but I knew that was going to lead to at least a 6-figure campaign. So I knew I would be able to finance my first shipment out of that initial PO. And then the way that fabric production and design works is you need to start producing what's called the graze fabric, which is the raw fabric before it's dyed and cut and sewed and finished into your final fabric. So that takes about a month or two. And so you can actually do the sizing and color breakdown midway through production. And so we had launched the initial purchase order. We got started on the work on the product. And then when we had a week of order information from the Indiegogo in terms of sizing and color breakdown, the first 1,000 orders or first 500 orders, I went off that as a sample size for my population for the whole PO. And we sent them that breakdown as the breakdown for the purchase order. So, and I designed the packaging myself. I love packaging design. And I wrote every word of copy myself, and did all the customer service myself, and all the Facebook advertising and email campaigns and everything. And put in 18-hour days for about 18 months, 7 days a week when I was getting started.
It sounds like it, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I love about that, Colin? You said something where you imposter syndrome kicked in because you had no idea about sheets or the textile industry. But what I love about this age we live in is we have so much information at our fingertips. I think a lot of people get stuck at the point of, I don't know how to do that. And they just stop there. They don't say, how can I learn to do this? How can I figure it out? How can I find mentors who've done it before me and I can pay them to teach me and accelerate my path? So it seems like mentors have played a crucial role in your journey. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because we're always harping on this, how mentors have really accelerated our journey in growing our business.
Well, I think there's two pieces of that. One is like what mentors are and what they do, and the other piece is like how the hell do you get them, right? And so for me, I moved to Denver when I was a 25-year-old kid. I didn't know anyone except for my friend who had founded the company that I was going to be working at. And I moved here for Techstars Boulder. So I got really lucky to be thrown into the Techstars ecosystem. And, I wasn't the founder of the company. I wasn't the CEO. So I didn't have the same type of attention or ability to get the same type of notice from people in the community. But I did go to all the meetups, all the meetings. I said yes to everything. I went to every single thing that I could get invited to. And, you have a conversation with someone, you say, hey, yeah, I'm trying to sell into a retailer this year with my wearable tech product. I've never done consumer electronics. I don't know what's important to a retailer. I don't know what type of terms they would be interested in. I don't know exactly how to structure the pitch. And then the person, by describing your problem to somebody in detail, in like a very specific way, right? Like, how do I sell into a major retailer, start to finish? That person was able to tell me, you've got to meet my VP of sales. He worked at Brookstone for a number of years. He can help you understand the retail landscape and that sort of thing. And then you have lunch, you pick up the bill, you buy a couple beers, and you ask them, hey, I'm looking for mentorship. Would you be willing to commit to 30 minutes a week, a phone call every Friday where I can ask you questions to gear me up for the week ahead? And in exchange, I'd love to buy you, a beer here and there, buy you dinner. And people are pretty amenable about paying it forward. So I got really lucky. I got 3 wonderful mentors, 2 of whom are now investors into Sheets and Giggles.
That's awesome.
And so it became a great relationship for them years later because they got to see me work and see up close how I worked and how I functioned and how I thought. And then when I started my own company 3 years after that, they had no questions about investing. They were like, yeah, we're totally in. Whatever you're doing, we'll back you.
Yeah.
And so I think that like the what and the who are difficult for people because sometimes people try to force a round peg into a square hole. Like people have heard me talk sometimes and they'll say, oh my gosh, I'm starting a B2B services company and I really could use some mentorship. And I'm like, well, I'm not really the person for that. And I can't really advise you on that. And they just keep asking. And I maybe I know somebody I can introduce them to, but I don't know, I can't help them there. So I advise people, don't force a round peg into a square hole. Don't try to force a relationship if the person has, family or kids or a demanding job or whatever it is. Maybe they just don't have time, and that's okay. It's nothing personal. But eventually you'll meet someone that you jive with and that you have a good vibe with that person, and you just feel like, you know what, I just feels like my people, and those are the people that will become your mentors. And then being very specific with your ask. I have a 30-minute standing meeting every Friday with someone that I'm mentoring right now. And all I ask when I meet with him is I say, what's the one thing that you need advice on this week? And he always has a very specific question of I'm trying to do X. What would you advise to best achieve that? And then I can dive in a little bit more deeply there. So I like the specificity.
That's awesome.
Mentorship.
Yeah, that's super, super good. Super great advice for people who are looking to get connected with a mentor. One thing I wanted to mention. It's so hard to meet mentors. Yeah.
So hard. You just got to say yes to everything. You have to, you have to go to the Techstars meetup. You have to go to the startup weekends. You have to go to, all the public events and the talks by, the local bigwig tech person. And you have to put yourself out there. And you have to and don't force it. I feel like people tend to be overly formal, or they tend to be overly stiff or nervous. I think people respond to authenticity and just being yourself. And, that's what I would advise as well.
Yeah, dude, that's super awesome. Super great advice. One thing I wanted to mention that I thought it was super cool about your story is you said, oftentimes your response to, something from your boss would be why, trying to understand why. And it even kind of played out later in your story when you're you said a minimum order quantity could be, $250,000 or $500,000. And then it sounds like through that conversation, you're like, well, if I put down the 10% down payment, can you just split this up into 4 for me? And that gave you, you made a way where there wasn't a way. It's probably clearly defined, hey, this is our minimum order quantity. And you're like, why don't you just give it to me in 4 and I can get going? So that was pretty cool too.
That happens a lot. And I remember when I was negotiating contracts with, major retailers and doing, my last company, we were in thousands of stores. That would happen all the time. As salespeople really like to hide behind, oh, well, we don't do that because legal won't let me, or oh, the legal department won't let us change that. And I always love to deconstruct it, and I'll often say well, who's the name of the person in legal that you have to ask? And they're like, oh, that would be Jessica. And then I say, okay, well, would you mind emailing Jessica and CCing me with this question? And they're like, yeah, I mean, I could ask. And I'm like, right, yeah, because they're just human beings, and they can change their minds about things just like you and I can. And so let's make the ask. And it's often funny. I feel like a lot of people don't enjoy that awkwardness, but I like to break it down a little bit sometimes into its base part, and call people out when they're acting out a role that I've seen acted out 1,000 times before.
Dude, that's super good. Yeah. I love that. And so now things are going pretty dang well for you. Just before we hopped on, you were telling us a little bit of a story of you never thought you would be in this situation with your company. You want to elaborate on that story with the city of Denver over there?
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, like I said, I've got imposter syndrome all the time. So I've always it's both intentional and unintentional, in the sense of I've always said oh, it's my weird little betting company, or it's my weird little pun-based betting company. It's just Colin's weird little idea, Sheets and Giggles. And so that does bleed into the way that you perceive your company though over time. And so all of a sudden you look up and your weird little company's on Good Morning America, or you look up and we just won best overall sheets by Good Housekeeping's March 2021 issue.
Dang.
I woke up to a text from my mom with a picture of her Good Housekeeping magazine that said, actually, I think it was my dad. I think my dad reads Good Housekeeping. Everybody's on the on the text chain. It's the family text chain. And there's a picture of Good Housekeeping with Sheets and Giggles circled up top as best overall sheets.
That's awesome, dude.
And I was bizarre, and like, and so stuff like that is what really starts to, allow you to see yourself maybe differently than you originally viewed yourself. And one of the things that was really surreal for me last year was, Denver, the city of Denver called me, the Downtown Denver Partnership, and in conjunction with the mayor's office, and they said, hey, we're building these respite motels for homeless individuals who are symptomatic. This is right when the COVID-19 outbreak was happening, 1 year ago this month. And basically, they called me and they said, hey, we need twin XL bed sheets. We keep asking around Denver who here has bed sheets. And we keep hearing Sheets and Giggles. Well, Sheets and Giggles, you have to go and Colin and ask him. And so I got a phone call and they said, hey, do you have twin XL sheets on hand? I said, yeah, how many do you need? They said, as many as you can give us. And so I gave them our whole inventory of twin and twin XL sheet sets. Inside of a week, we had them all at the homeless shelter. I think it was like 5 days from start to finish. I think by June, we had 300 people a night sleeping in those respite motels who were all symptomatic individuals. And that materially helps lower the spread because they're not mixing in with the general population and the shelters, with them going back out to the rest of the community. And it was just such a surreal moment for me. I was like, why am I the guy that, first off, there's a structural problem there of like, why is the city of Denver they should not be calling me. Like, that's like a weird like macro level point about United States emergency preparedness, which we can all talk about later. But like it was also a surreal moment for me about like, I've built something that like is now helping people in a way that I never anticipated. And that was really cool. And that's actually one of the things that led to us being on Good Morning America is Amazon caught wind of these donations and we donated $40,000 to COVID-19 relief in cash as well in the state of Colorado. It was 20% of our sales for a 30-day time period right at the beginning of the pandemic.
That's awesome.
And Amazon found out about it and they reached out to us. The PR department loved it. And then they said, do you mind if we pitch this to a few people here and there when we have the opportunity? And I said, yeah, do whatever you think is best. And I got a phone call in October or early November of last year. And it was the guy from Amazon PR department. He said, we got it. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we got you. You're going to be on Good Morning America. And I was like, no shit. It was crazy. And so, we did an interview in Denver where the home I just bought, we went out to the model home in the development because GMA needed a place to shoot it. And, it was cool because it was like the home that I was buying. And
that's awesome.
My girlfriend's my realtor, so that was cool. So she got to like, one of the homes that she sold was like on Good Morning America. It was like a whole big thing. Anyway, I'm just getting on a tangent. But like overall, it was really cool for me to just like have that moment. And it aired on Black Friday. So I was home. I was with my mom and my dad for Thanksgiving, and I got to watch my sister, and I got to watch, myself on Good Morning America with my family on Black Friday over Thanksgiving weekend, and it was a really surreal moment. So it's been a cool last year for sure, and I'm really enjoying my weird little company becoming more of a national thing.
Heck yeah, dude, that's awesome.
That's such a cool story, man.
Fun.
That's awesome. And to have that moment with your family and everything, that's pretty special. I wanted to ask, we work with a lot of small businesses, a lot of 6-figure companies trying to become 7-figure companies, a lot of people in the $25,000 a month range, really looking to scale. If you could remember back to you in that phase, what were some of the most important keys to you scaling your business, from $25K a month to over $100,000 a month?
So that's a great question. So the way that I'll just give you the breakdown in terms of the monthly scale. So we went from the $284,000 crowdfunding campaign, which ended in June of 2018, to pre-orders. And then we started shipping in October. Pre-order months are pretty slow. July, August, $30,000, $20,000. In September we did like $20,000. And then October we did like 70. November we did 90. So right away we were pretty up there, like 90K. I was like, I did the math and I was like, oh, that's $1 million a year company.
Yeah.
And I remember we did our Purple Friday sale. Our Purple Friday sale was the week before Black Friday. From day one, I wanted to do that because I didn't want to be I didn't want to be busy on Black Friday. I wanted to be with my family, and same with my employees. So we always said, okay, Purple Friday is the week before Black Friday. We do our big sale that day, one day only, 30% off. And so we did that in 2018 for the very first time. And it ended up being a $22,000 day. And I remember thinking like, holy shit, $22,000 day. That's an $8 million a year company if I can annualize that.
Yeah.
And the year after that, we grew from January, February of 2019, $50,000-$60,000 a month. First $100,000 a month was April 2019. And then November 2019 was our biggest month ever. And that was our first $100,000 day was in, in 19. Awesome. And then this last year in November 2020, that ballooned to $250,000 day.
Nice.
Which is crazy in terms of the Purple Friday sale. So that's, and then in terms of like, it hasn't been an even trajectory. COVID-19 interrupted our growth. So I just want to give people a viewpoint in terms of like how it happened for us and how quickly, and it's been a lot of work and a lot of, but like, I would say that there's some low hanging fruit, right? In terms of the paid social, digital advertising, brand name searches, brand name recognition. I would absolutely I recommend being on Amazon. I don't think that you can scale without being on that channel. It's an extremely important channel. And then from one more perspective, and this is not super nuanced, but like I think that content is probably the biggest differentiator for brands. I've always believed that, and for me, I invest heavily in content. I've got 3 full-time creatives on the team. Awesome. Copy, social, and brand, and we're going to hire a visual designer, and I'm a copywriter, I'm a script writer, and so I think that the number one thing you can do is to put out content that's really has a lot of it's like almost like a lightning rod. Like the main piece of content we put out there was 3 men in a bed drinking red wine with avocado face masks on. I was in the middle. And, we got a lot of comments on that. Some good, some bad. We got a lot of shares on it. We got a lot of word of mouth from that. We got some press from that, we got posted on, and it wasn't meant to make a statement. It was just funny. It's 3 burly bearded dudes in bed drinking red wine. It's just a visual, dichotomy. You just don't expect to see it with a bedding brand. And that's what I love. For me, my golden rule of content, this might be helpful for some people, and to answer your question, my golden rule is if you're doing content, it should be something that no one's ever seen before in your category, because when I started the company, I said, we'll never do pictures of the folded sheets on the bed with the white walls and the French press coffee and the fern. And as you hire more people, you have to resist that pull towards the banality of the industry, because they see what other people are doing and they want to emulate that. And so for me, my golden rule is if you've seen this before, don't shoot it for Sheets and Giggles. And so instead we have, women smoking cigars in bed. We've got, we have dogs under the covers and people at the foot of the bed curled up. We've got, models with circle saws, like, small female models with circle saws while their husbands are asleep in bed, sawing logs in half in the bedroom with wood chips flying everywhere.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And you're trying to do stuff. I think for me, the best hack is to do stuff that people have never seen before. And then we do get about 20% of our traffic comes from our blog posts. So we do a lot of heavy SEO driven blog posts, which is, I think, a pretty well-known tactic by now. And I really think that content that's valuable in and of itself versus like related to your company is very important. So I did a resume guide, for example, that I posted in February 2018 on Reddit, on the job subreddit, that became the top all-time resume guide post on Reddit. And it has like 2 million downloads. And in that resume format, it has a line about Sheets and Giggles and, a footer about who I am and the company. It leads back to our blog post on our site about the resumes. And, it's the best piece of content we've ever done in terms of traffic and brand notoriety. And cost me nothing but a Saturday afternoon and answering a bunch of questions that people had. And so
That's cool.
it was, stuff, little hacks like that.
Yeah, that's so cool what you said about content. I love that rule of thumb. We bring on a lot of clients that built their brand strictly organically. They've done content pretty well. They've built their following on Instagram and Facebook. Those are the brands that we see scale really quickly once we add some paid to it. I know early on you said, you were spending up to 50% of your revenue on paid traffic. Well, maybe that's just what I took. You said it could be up to 50%.
It could be, yeah.
What's your take on that as an early brand that has built up an organic? Because we don't have a set number for percentage that you should spend on revenue when you're smaller like that. We just say spend as much as you can to keep growing and getting market share, as you're building up. Then once you're more stable, you can kind of define the percentage. But early on, we see people spend up to 50%. And I feel like people have to have a stomach for that if they're wanting to grow and scale and beat the competition.
Early on, I did that on Amazon. I was spending a ton of cash to just grow the channel. I think you just have to be strategic about it in the sense of it goes back to goals. So we've raised $2 million of venture capital, and that's allowed us to burn money, for most months in our history. It's allowed me to take chances. $30,000 on direct mail. Goodbye. 0 sales. I'll see that again.
Yeah.
It's allowed me to try things on podcasts and, try different channels, and it's a real nice luxury. But for some people, they don't have that luxury. And so I would say that you're correct in the sense of getting going is important, and you will lose money in the beginning. You need to recapture those people in terms of not LTV and not blowing them up right away for more and more money on the email list, but getting them to leave reviews, getting them to engage a word of mouth, getting them to post on social media about you. That was what we optimized for in the beginning. Instead of saying, hey, you just bought sheets, would you like a comforter? Would you like pillowcases? Would you like duvet covers? We didn't want to exhaust people for that. So we did free Pizza Friday giveaways. If you tag your friend on our Friday post, you'll be entered in to win a free pizza this weekend purchased by us. And we probably bought 100 pizzas for people, right? And it was $10 a pizza on the Domino's app, right?
Yeah.
And so we probably gained a ton of brand recognition, notoriety, and followers for the cost of a 555 deal on the Domino's app. And that was a really good hack that we did. And we always ask people to follow us. We always ask people to tag us on social. When you open up our box, it says Sheets and Giggles, talk sheet at Sheets Giggles. So it's a social call to action right away. And I think we just optimized for that word of mouth in the beginning. But overall, I think your marketing can be anywhere from 20 to 50% of your MSRP, but maybe even lower if you're really good at it. But it's all about your variable cost structure. So if you have, a 60% profit margin after your COGS and shipping and returns and discounts and defects and so on and so forth, then you can spend 40% of your revenue on marketing and have a 20% contribution margin. But that still means that $1 million a month, you've only got $200,000 of operating income to run your business. Yeah. And at $400,000 a month, that means you only got $80,000 of operating income to run your business. So what's your payroll? What's your agencies, your attorneys, your accountants, your software? I don't know, man. The consumer space is really difficult. I think people hear 7-figure months, $1 million months, and think that these guys have it all figured out, or they're rolling in it. But the truth is that the P&L never gets easier to manage.
Yeah.
And the more money you make, the more you got to spend to support it. So, if you're positive on your contribution margin, the good news is that you can scale your way out of a lack of profitability.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet, dude. I want to be respectful of your time. I know we've been jamming for a while, but it's been super valuable.
Yeah.
Rob, any more questions? You
want to
wrap it up?
No, dude. Thanks so much. This was super, super value packed. Where can people go if they want to buy some sheets or learn more about you and what you're doing? Where would you point people?
So they can just go to sheetsgiggles.com. It's just like the brand name, but no ampersand or and. I'm pretty easy to find too. If you search for Colin, Sheets and Giggles, you'll find me. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, the usual places. And then further, if you want to buy some sheets and you only shop on Amazon, we're also at amazon.com/sheets. And that's my favorite thing that we own is that URL, amazon.com/sheets. Yeah.
That's super awesome. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you guys. Thanks for having me, and I hope this is valuable for at least one person out there.
Heck yeah.
All right.
All right. Until next time, people of the Ecom Growth Show, we'll catch you later.
Peace out.